What's up, Brian Tong here, and there were so many things announced at WWDC 22, so this video is going to talk about, sure, the big stuff that matters, but even better, it's all about the stuff that Apple didn't tell you at DubDub for iOS 16, iPadOS 16, watchOS 9, and macOS Ventura. Now, there's a whole lot of new information and details and features that they couldn't pack in the keynote, so this is where to get it all in one place, so hey, buckle up. All right, we have to start with iOS 16, and I'm always going to tell you that you shouldn't install the beta on your primary device because it's buggy, and if you do, hey, that's on you. And please don't complain about it because it's the beta. Now, we know nothing is final yet, and things could and will change, but the iOS 16 developer beta has me instantly excited for its final release in fall. Now, we heard the rumors of a lock screen with widgets, and we know those have existed forever on Android. And look, I do hate saying it this way, but it's true here. The new lock screen in iOS 16 is done the Apple way, and it's fantastic. The best way I can describe it is think of it like watch faces, but for your iPhone. You do a long press on the lock screen, and it gives you the option to swipe through new wallpaper lock screens that you've made and create your own. There are preset lock screens that you can use or pull from your photos, and then iOS 16's built-in visual lookup can separate the subject to give your lock screen dimensionality by covering part of the clock with the image. You can change the font and colors of the date and time, and the widgets bar give you a total of 4 widget spots to use, or you can even use the larger size ones that take up 2 widget spots. New widgets for third-party apps, they'll be available as they ramp up. You can swipe to see different effects available for your lock screen wallpaper. Even something fun here is like the emoji wallpaper that lets you just pick up to 6 emojis, and then when you swipe it, it gives you different layout options for it, and then you can also change the background color. Now, notifications will roll up from the bottom, so they don't cover the most important part of your wallpaper, plus they're easy to get to from the bottom. Live activities, I'm excited about this. They'll also be coming to the lock screen, whether it's something like a timer or live sports scores or the status of a rideshare and more. But then my mind has me thinking, right, with the rumors of a potential always-on display for the next iPhone, having some of your favorite widgets, notifications, and live activities all at a glance, all at once, that makes the always-on display even more useful if it happens, but we are moving in that direction. Now, you can even create a lock screen to automatically change over for you at the end of the workday to get you out of your work brain. So the lock screen is instantly going to make you feel like you have a new phone, and you can do a whole lot with it. Now, let's also jump over to messages, and it gets 3 big new features that I feel like I'm going to be using every day. You'll be able to edit a sent message because we all throw in so many typos. Like, mine can be so bad, my buddies call it Tong talk, so I need this. You can unsend a message if you regret sending that picture of you sent a message to the wrong person, or maybe you were feeling a certain way and you want to take it back. You also have a 15-minute period of time to either edit or unsend the message, so that's a pretty big window of time there. And for full transparency, there's going to be a mention under the text that it has been edited or a message has been unsent. Now, the person on the other side receiving the message can still see it before you change it or unsend it if they do before you make the changes. And if they didn't see it at first, there's still going to be a mention that it was edited or the message wasn't sent. And then the third feature, you can mark a thread as unread so you can go back to it later. Now, I am using all of this in messages. I also talked about image lookup earlier in the lock screen area, but it just shows how powerful iOS 16 is and what it could mean for the future. So here in my photos, I can see a person or object, and you just hold down on it for a second and it separates from the background. You see this cool like glow effect around it showing the separation. You have the option to copy or share it, and I can drop that into other apps. I like that I can even hold on to it, pull it off kind of the side to hang out while still holding it again, and then using my other finger to navigate on the phone, choose the app to drop it into whatever I want. It can work on people, cats and dogs, and sometimes on food. It's not gonna always get you what you want, but I'd say right now, playing around with it, it gets right about 90% of the time. And I'm not saying that Apple is gonna get into Photoshop anytime soon, but this should take someone a long time, like me, playing with the magnetic lasso and the alpha channels, going ding, 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 and now we're just holding on to a subject for a second, like whoop. This is stupid good, and we could possibly see this being implemented into more editing features for photos directly from Apple or in other third-party apps. Now, there are so many more cool, useful features like dictation that still keeps the keyboard open so you can dictate and edit at the same time. There's a lot of collaborative features coming across all of the OSs, and one of them is iCloud Shared Photo Library, where up to 5 people can share their collection with each other. Now, this is a separate iCloud library that everyone can contribute to. It is geared towards family use, but it doesn't have to be. And keep in mind, you can only be part of one shared library. And a new detail is that the person who initiates the shared library will be the one using their own iCloud storage space to host it. You don't have to share your entire library because I don't want to see all of your dig pics. You can choose from a date or share pictures that include only people from that shared library, which makes the most sense. And everyone has equal access to the library for editing and deleting photos from it. So this is really for like your inner circle, and it's a really cool idea. Now, since we're talking about photos, it's been revealed on Mac Rumors that iOS 16 will allow you to copy the edits you made in one photo, then you can just paste it to others if you have multiple photos that you want to edit in the same way. You just hit those 3 dots on the corner of the photo to access the feature. That's cool. Apple's also added 6 new Memoji sticker poses, including the chef's kiss or the yawn, because who doesn't want more memojis? And there's even small things like a new AirPod icon that appears in the now playing tile of Control Center or also on the lock screen. You'll get a notice when your phone is overheating and charging has been put on hold until it cools down. There's this redesign of the text editing menu, and quick note, a feature from iPadOS and macOS has come to iOS 16 as well. Plus, if you have the contacts widget set up, it will show you if you have any unread messages from your top contacts. And if you're using Apple's video player, there's an option to select the playback speed of the video, but this is optional. It's going to be up to the developer to implement this. But those are just a few of the new features in iOS 16, and we're going to wait for the public beta. Again, it's not a final release until the fall, but come on now. I'd love to hear what features you like the most from what you've seen so far. Maybe features that I didn't even mention that you've heard about. Just put them in the comments. And the iOS 16 feature that blew all of our minds, CarPlay. I mean, no one saw that coming, and Apple showed off their vision of what a CarPlay car could be like in the future with an Apple aesthetic, taking over all the available screens, even the instruments for the car. I guess they had to show us something with all these reports of uncertainty around what is actually happening with their potential Apple Car project. The new CarPlay looks amazing. It looks so clean, but honestly, wouldn't this be the best and really ideal in an actual Apple car? You'll be able to customize the look, feel, and even the layout for yourself. Apple says automakers are excited to bring this new version of CarPlay, with vehicles expected to be announced at the end of 2023. So we are a long, long ways out from even an announcement, but I loved what I saw. And if it actually becomes real, and right now, look, there aren't too many cars that even have that many displays everywhere. I think of something like the Mercedes-Benz EQ, you got Rivians and Lucid cars, but I'm not looking at these higher-end cars. I think that it's the Nissans and Toyotas and Hyundais and cars in that sweet spot that are really going to push this new CarPlay adoption forward. And then maybe by that time, people start buzzing about it. Apple will actually have a car ready in, 3 to 5 years. But also do not expect Tesla to even let CarPlay on its cars ever. Now, iOS 16 will be compatible with the iPhone 8 and later, and the iPhone SE second generation or later. I know that won't sit well with users of the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, which uses the same A10 chip that is supported by iPadOS 16. And then on top of that, the 5th generation iPad, which has a less powerful A9 chip, is also supported by iPadOS 16. And we know the OSs are different, but they do share a lot of the same underlying tech. And at the same time, I guess, you could also argue that Apple has supported the iPhone 7 6 years after its release, which is impressive, but you've got to think that maybe they could have just squeezed out one more year of support. All right, let's talk about iPadOS 16. And they finally brought the app that we have been waiting for, the Weather app. Does it look good? It gives you more information than ever. It uses all the screen real estate. Okay, the Weather app is nice. I mean, this has been a long-running, desperate want, need, and joke, but that's not it. The biggest addition is Stage Manager that allows you to multitask in an all-new way with up to 4 apps on screen at a time. Plus, your 4 most recently used apps or group of apps appear on the left side to switch between them. And you can adjust app sizes and their arrangement, but they do kind of snap into place even when resizing. You can increase the pixel density of your display to get more screen real estate to take better advantage of this feature. iPadOS 16 gives you this new option. It's in the display settings and under display zoom with a new one. It's called more space to fit more on your screen. And that's really useful if you think that you're gonna use Stage Manager. It also supports true support to an external display with resolutions up to 6K, and that can be used to have 4 additional apps on at one time. So that would potentially give you 8 apps running at the same time with Stage Manager. Now the requirement is that Stage Manager only works with iPads with the M1 chip. So that would be the most recent iPad Pro and the iPad Air. And I know some users are not happy about that, but I do think that this should be considered, right? The M1 is the chip that has the most overhead and performance to support this right now. Whenever you add more interface, it always requires more processing and RAM. iPadOS 16 also supports virtual memory swap to use your available hard drive storage as memory. Now that's a PC feature, but now for the iPad, and apps can use up to 16 gigs of RAM per app with virtual memory swap. Developers, they're gonna have to ask for an exception for their apps to use this 16 gigs of RAM, and of course not all apps need it. But if you think about this, the iPad Pro or iPad Air running 8 apps, and that's gonna require a lot more headroom. The M1 chip also has faster storage, so you can see why Apple set it as the benchmark for the future. And sure, they could have run it on a different chip, but if it doesn't run as well, or maybe they limit the number of open apps and it's just not the same experience, then guess what? People are gonna be complaining about it not being polished. So I think it actually makes sense that the M1 is the chip that supports this feature. You know, I'm not obviously happy that this is the case and that it's limited, and I'm also not defending Apple, but it makes sense. Now, we still did not see any new Apple Pro app support, but all these things lining up does open the door wider than ever for that to be a possibility in the future. Another nugget I learned is for professional workflows, Apple talked about using the 12.9-inch iPad Pro as a reference display with reference mode. Now, iPadOS will automatically detect the content you're using with the iPad Pro with the XDR display and its reference color in this mode. On a Mac and a Pro Display XDR, you need to know the content you're working with and choose the proper settings to display it. iPadOS 16 does it automatically for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. There's also a lot of collaborative work that Apple is clearly tapping into from their own work experiences during the pandemic across all the OSs. You have things like SharePlay and Messages, sharing Safari tab groups, and then a new app that's a virtual shared whiteboard really on iPad called Freeform coming later this year that lets you collaborate in real time. It also works on the Mac. But the big ones for me for iPadOS 16, Stage Manager, virtual memory swap, and then a true external display support that could really open up the door of new possibilities for new apps and workflows for someone like myself. Now, iPadOS will be available on the iPad 5th generation and later, and these other models. And if you're wondering, why is there no new lock screen for the iPad? Well, come on, everybody. Remember, Apple put widgets on the iPhone first, and then the iPad the following year, which was iPadOS 15. So expect the same thing here, the new lock screen in iPadOS coming next year because Apple. All right, let's go to watchOS 9. If it felt like they really moved through it pretty fast, it's because they did 2 new features that they didn't really talk about in detail during the keynote. The calendar app, it's gonna be more powerful and you'll be able to now create new events right from your wrist in watchOS 9. There's also a new week view for your schedule, and you can edit reminders on your watch as well, so a lot more versatility to go directly here. And then the podcast app will now have a search function. I've been waiting for this for years. I even used other apps for a while. It didn't before, so you can search and now add podcasts directly from the watch. There's also gonna be suggestions of what you might like and then more to discover. So I think that this is a great opportunity to check out the Apple Bits XL audio podcast on your watch. Now, the Apple Watch gets amped up when it comes to workouts, whether it's tracking data with new metrics like heart rate zones, power, and elevation. You can customize workouts for pace, heart rate, and cadence. You can even go on a run and it's gonna track your path via GPS, and then you can scroll through the data to see where your heart rate or pace or other metrics were during different parts of that run. It's just a whole lot more detailed in every way. And another feature they didn't really talk about, when you're doing Apple Fitness Plus workouts, there are times when the trainer is gonna call out for an all-out intensity. Well, there's now gonna be a visual cue that shows up on screen during the workout to give you kind of that extra kick in the butt that you need. Also, Fitness Plus subscribers who use AirPlay to see their workouts will now get their real-time personal metrics from their Apple Watch on compatible displays. That hasn't happened until now. Also, the biggest addition, I've been asking for 2 years, maybe even longer than that, but 2 years I've been really pushing for it. Better sleep tracking, and that is finally here. You'll be able to see your REM, core, or deep sleep stages now, your breathing, and also track your sleep over time with the Apple Watch in detail. We're gonna find out more when the new Apple Watch arrives, maybe what other new health things are coming, but right now, watchOS 9, what they showed us, there is more and more health data and tracking more than ever. And you've also gotta have new watch faces. What's the fun without new watch faces? Now, watchOS 9 is compatible on the Apple Watch SE and the Apple Watch Series 4 and higher, so Series 3 users will finally have to make an upgrade if they want to take advantage of all these new features, and I know there are a whole lot of you out there. All right, let's jump over to macOS Ventura. And a lot of the features that you've seen in iOS and iPadOS are coming to the Mac, like Stage Manager or the new messaging and sharing features. Now, Mail gets 3 new features that matter. You can now unsend an email after it's sent, but you only have 10 seconds to do it. So that's a lot shorter than the 15-minute window you have for sending, editing, and unsending messages. So just be aware of that. You can also schedule emails to be sent at a later time, a very business-like feature, and remind yourself to read certain emails in the future. There's shared tab groups in Safari, but I would just want to make sure you really make sure you double check what tabs are open on your browser, because I don't want to see the tabs that some of you sickos would like to share with me. Like, I don't want to see it. But also handing off FaceTime calls between devices when they're close by. I love that feature, going from like your phone and then being on your laptop and just popping on there. That's pretty cool. But the one thing that is still blowing my mind on macOS Ventura, continuity camera. It basically solves Apple's problem of not always having the best webcam by using the best camera you have, your iPhone. Now, there was an app developer called Camel that did something like this, but here the Apple integration is so smooth because of the ecosystem. It also works with third-party apps as your camera as well. But when your phone is in range, it detects it automatically. Apple will be offering a MagSafe kind of like holder in the future. They said that Belkin will be making some as well, or you can just prop it up yourself. But the crazy feature is that it can use your ultra-wide camera on your iPhone and split the image into 2. So then it flips it, stretches it, and uses geometric correction to give you a head-on shot of your face and an overview shot of what's in front of you, like an over-the-top desktop view. Like, this is some crazy voodoo magic, but it's gonna be awesome for demos and for creators. I could already see myself use this for some quick hit live streams to show off a new product and just do a quick Q&A without having to set up a bunch of stuff. This feature works even with Intel-based Macs, and it also handles battery management by turning the phone screen off when you're using the camera this way. It also supports center stage with the ultra-wide camera. If you're not using center stage, then it uses the wide camera. And this feature supports portrait mode and studio lighting effects that you can change to kind of give you different image options. It is really one of those true ecosystem features that you can't do anywhere else, and I can't wait to play with it. Now, another improvement, the system preferences have this new redesigned look and feel, and it's now called system settings, similar to an iOS style. One complaint is that Apple has removed the demo videos that come with the trackpad settings that show you how to use it, but Craig Federighi recently said that they're coming back in a new experience in a future Ventura beta. That's why this is a beta. And there's also a new game controller menu for managing your game controllers connected to the Mac. We saw that Apple is really pushing hard on gaming with their new Metal 3 framework and Apple Silicon to push even better graphics and frame rates while reducing game load times. But to me, it's a lot of the same stuff. If the Mac doesn't support the top games like Roblox, Valorant, and Fortnite, it's still gonna be hard to draw in a significantly larger audience in if they don't have the games that everyone is playing. Now, here's a long list of Macs that will support macOS Ventura, but there are a few features that will not be supported by Intel-based Macs. There's live captions across audio content. This is a new feature that lets you see transcribed dialogue, for example, in FaceTime calls. That will not be available to Intel-based Macs. Reference mode for a sidecar display using something like the 12.9-inch iPad Pro that will also not be supported by Intel Macs. And then dictation mode that automatically does the punctuation for you when using it will not be supported by Intel-based Macs as well. So we threw a lot of things at you. There's obviously things I couldn't cover because Apple's keynote was almost like 2 hours long and it was packed with so much. People are still finding new features and details. And on a side note, we heard nothing about tvOS this year at WWDC, so it could be a stagnant year for the Apple TV platform unless maybe there's a new product with new software that's announced later this year or in the future, but not really a peep. But overall, I think this was a really, really good WWDC this year with iOS 16 leading the way and a lot of new features that I'll actually use daily. There's a whole lot more collaborative tools for families and friends or even businesses using Apple's ecosystem, and I really give the whole thing 2 thumbs up. So you know what? That's a good Apple.
Yeah.
And nothing here is final. It's still the developer beta, so we're gonna wait for the official release and make our final judgment on all these updates sometime in the fall. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you like what you see, give me that thumbs up, subs up, and hit that notification bell, ding, to get all my videos when they drop. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take care and be safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.